Dexter Cole, Bloodline of Secrets. Blood covered Dexter Cole's hands. It wasn't supposed to end like this. The flashlight in his trembling grip shook as he looked down at the man lying motionless on the cold concrete floor. His own reflection stared back at him in a pool of crimson spreading wider with every heartbeat. His chest rose and fell fast. The smell of iron filled the air. Outside, the faint sound of sirens grew closer, echoing through the empty warehouse. Dexter whispered to himself, "I didn't mean to do this." But the voice inside his head, the one he thought he'd buried years ago, replied softly, "You did what you had to do." He looked again at the lifeless man's face. It was James Carter, the police chief of Brooksville. The man who had once saved Dexter's life, and now Dexter had taken his. A loud crash came from the far side of the warehouse. Someone was coming. Dexter turned off the flashlight and pressed himself against a pillar, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. "Dexter," a voice shouted. "We know you're in here." The sirens stopped outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the dusty windows. He had only seconds left before they found him. His breath came out in sharp gasps. He had to think. Fast. He glanced down at his blood-soaked hands one last time and muttered under his breath, "This is the price of the truth." Then he ran toward the back exit, only to find it chained shut. Footsteps echoed behind him. "Dexter Cole, put your hands where I can see them." He froze. And then, a single gunshot shattered the night. The story of how Dexter Cole reached this moment began 10 months earlier. Dexter Cole was a quiet man living a quiet life, or at least, that's what everyone thought. After years working in the city as a forensic expert, he had moved to the small town of Brooksville, trying to escape the ghosts of his past. He ran a small security business, fixed locks, installed cameras, and spent most of his time alone. People liked him. He was polite, helpful, and always calm. No one ever guessed that he used to help the police solve murders. And no one knew why he left the force so suddenly. Every morning, Dexter would jog past the old bridge at the edge of town. He said it cleared his mind. But in truth, it was the only place he could think without feeling watched. One morning, he stopped mid-jog when he saw something strange. Down by the water, a car door was open. The vehicle was half submerged in the shallow river. He looked around. No one else was there. He pulled out his phone to call the police, but then he saw it, a trail of blood leading away from the car into the woods. Against every instinct, Dexter followed it. The trail led deeper into the trees, winding past fallen logs and thick brush. Then he saw it, a torn piece of cloth stuck to a branch. He recognized it immediately. It was from a police uniform. His stomach tightened. When the officers arrived, they found the body of Deputy Mark Willis near the riverbank. It looked like a hit and run, but Dexter knew better. He could tell by the bruising and the way the blood had dried. Mark hadn't died in the crash. He'd been dragged there. Chief Carter arrived later, furious and shaken. "Dexter, stay out of this," he warned. "You're not part of the force anymore." But Dexter couldn't let it go. The way the body was staged, it was too familiar. It looked like the work of someone he had helped catch years ago. Someone who should have been dead. That night, Dexter couldn't sleep. The rain tapped against his window as he sat at his desk, flipping through old files he wasn't supposed to have. The killer he was thinking of was known as the surgeon, a man who cut out his victims' eyes before leaving them to be found. But that man had been executed 5 years ago. Or so Dexter thought. A week later, a second body was found. A local mechanic. Same injuries. Same precision. Same calling card. The town was in panic. The police blamed a copycat, but Dexter didn't buy it. He began tracking details on his own, crime scene photos, body placement, even the timing of the murders. Each clue led him closer to something he didn't want to believe. The killer wasn't copying the surgeon. The killer was related to him. And every piece of evidence pointed to someone connected to Dexter's own past. One night, while driving back from the gas station, Dexter noticed headlights following him. He turned left. The car turned left. He sped up. It sped up. He pulled over by the woods, pretending to check his tires. The other car stopped 100 feet behind him. The engine idled. Then the lights went off. Dexter felt a chill crawl up his neck. He got back in his car and drove straight home without looking back. The next morning, there was a note taped to his door. Written in red ink, it read, "You can't protect them forever, Dexter. Blood remembers blood." He tore the note down and looked around, but no one was there. His neighbors were out walking their dogs, completely unaware that something dangerous was unfolding right in front of them. That night, Dexter went to see Chief Carter again. "Someone's playing with me," he said. "This is connected to the surgeon's case." Carter frowned. "That's impossible. That man was executed." Dexter leaned closer, then explained the matching cuts, the patterns, the tools used. "It's the same person, or someone trained by him." The chief sighed. "You're seeing ghosts, Cole. Let the police handle this." But Dexter couldn't let it go. Not when the killings started resembling his old cases too perfectly. He began secretly following Carter's team during investigations. He took photos, studied footprints, and noted times. Every new detail brought him closer to the truth, and closer to danger. Because the killer wasn't just someone from his past. The killer was someone from his family. One evening, Dexter was sorting through old family boxes in his basement when he found something that froze his blood, a set of surgical knives wrapped in cloth. They were identical to the ones the surgeon had used. And beside them, an old photograph of his father, holding Dexter as a child, standing next to the surgeon. He dropped the photo, his hands shaking. How could that be possible? His father, Dr. Thomas Cole, had died years before the surgeon's crimes began. Or so Dexter had always believed. But if this photo was real, if his father was connected, it meant everything he knew about his family was a lie. He heard footsteps creak upstairs. "Hello," he called. No answer. Then he saw a shadow move across the wall. Dexter grabbed one of the knives and stepped toward the stairs. "Who's there?" The lights flickered once, then went out. A whisper came from the darkness. "Blood remembers blood." Dexter spun around, just as a figure lunged at him. The knife clattered to the floor, and the basement filled with the sound of struggle. Dexter's eyes snapped open. His head throbbed as he realized he was tied to a chair in his own basement. The air was cold, damp, and smelled of dust and iron. A single light bulb swung above him, flickering weakly. Across the room stood a man dressed in black, face hidden by shadows. His voice was calm but chilling. "You shouldn't have gone looking, Dexter." Dexter tried to steady his breathing. "Who are you?" The man stepped forward, revealing a face that sent a shock down Dexter's spine. It was Dr. Thomas Cole, his father. Older, thinner, but unmistakably alive. Dexter's throat went dry. "Dad," he whispered. Thomas smiled faintly. "I told them I died. It was the only way to keep the bloodline clean." Dexter's mind raced. The photo, the knives, the bodies, it all connected. "You're the surgeon," he said, his voice trembling. Thomas chuckled softly. "No, son. I'm the teacher. The surgeon was just one of my pupils." Dexter strained against the ropes. "You killed people. You trained a murderer." Thomas walked closer, his expression cold and deliberate. "They weren't people, Dexter. They were corrupt, broken, and rotten. I fixed them, just like I tried to fix you." The words cut deeper than any blade. Dexter's heart pounded as he remembered his childhood, his father's late-night lessons, the strange dissections of animals, the way he talked about cleansing imperfection. "You think killing makes you clean?" Dexter spat. "You're insane." Thomas tilted his head. "And yet, you inherited my precision, my calmness under pressure. You think you left it all behind when you left the force, but you didn't, son. It's in you." He placed a knife in Dexter's hand and whispered, "It's always been in you." Dexter felt rage boiling in his veins. "You're wrong." With a violent pull, he broke one of the ropes and swung the knife upward, slicing Thomas's arm. Blood splattered across the wall. Thomas stumbled back, laughing instead of screaming. "That's my boy," he whispered. Dexter freed himself completely and rushed upstairs. He grabbed his phone, trying to call the police, but the signal was dead. The lines had been cut. He could hear Thomas moving downstairs, slow and deliberate. Dexter ran to his car, fumbling with the keys. Before he could start the engine, headlights flared in his rearview mirror. Another car blocked the driveway. The door opened, and Chief Carter stepped out, gun in hand. Dexter froze. "Chief, listen to me. My father's alive. He's in the house." Carter's face was pale. "Dexter, you need to put your hands up." "What?" "You've been on every crime scene, every murder linked to the surgeon copycat. Your fingerprints are everywhere. The blood matches your DNA." Dexter shook his head in disbelief. "That's impossible. My father, he framed me." Carter's grip on the gun tightened. "Step away from the vehicle." Then, a voice called from behind Carter. "Don't listen to him, James." Thomas emerged from the shadows, clutching his wounded arm, blood still dripping. He smiled eerily. "He's dangerous. He's been killing for months. He needs to be stopped. Dexter felt the world spinning. His own father was turning the law against him. "You're lying," he shouted. "Tell him the truth." Thomas only smirked. "The truth, son, is that you inherited the sickness." Before Carter could react, Thomas pulled a small gun from his coat and fired. The bullet struck Carter in the shoulder. Dexter dove for cover as another shot rang out, shattering the car window. "Dad, stop!" Dexter yelled. Thomas moved closer, limping but smiling through the pain. "You can't run from blood, Dexter. You can't run from me." Dexter crawled behind the truck, grabbing a wrench from the toolbox. As Thomas stepped around the corner, Dexter swung it with all his strength, striking his father across the jaw. Thomas fell, dazed. Breathing hard, Dexter pointed the wrench at him like a weapon. "It ends tonight." Thomas wiped the blood from his mouth and grinned. "You still don't get it, do you? This was never about ending. It's about continuing. The work must go on." Before Dexter could move, Thomas reached into his pocket and pressed a small remote. A faint beeping sound echoed from the basement. Dexter's eyes widened. "What did you do?" Thomas smiled weakly. "Legacy, my son." The explosion rocked the house. Windows shattered. Flames erupted from the basement. Dexter was thrown backward, slamming against the pavement. Heat and smoke filled the air. When the ringing in his ears stopped, he crawled toward the wreckage. The house was engulfed in fire. Thomas was nowhere to be seen. "Dad!" he screamed. But there was no answer. Only the roar of fire and the wail of sirens in the distance. Hours later, firefighters extinguished the blaze. Chief Carter, barely conscious, was taken away by ambulance. The remains of the basement were searched, but no trace of Thomas Cole was ever found. Dexter sat on the curb, covered in ash and blood, staring at the flames that had destroyed his home, and maybe his father. Or maybe not. An officer approached. "Sir, are you okay?" Dexter didn't answer. His eyes fell on a small metal box that had been thrown clear of the explosion. He picked it up and slowly opened it. Inside was a photograph, him as a child, standing with his father in front of the hospital where Thomas once worked. On the back, a message written in red ink. "Blood remembers blood. See you soon, son." Dexter's hand trembled. The sound of sirens faded into the night as he stared at the burning ruins. His father was out there somewhere, and the nightmare wasn't over. He whispered to himself, voice trembling but cold. "This time, I'll find you first." The camera zooms out as the house collapses completely, smoke rising into the night sky. Fade to black.